guys. Happy Wednesday and welcome to another Bestie chat. Give everybody a few seconds to hop on. If you're watching the replay, this is the, maybe the 8th or 9th Bestie chat. Hey, Amy. So I started these back at the beginning of July and am excited to wrap up month 2 and go into September. Hey, Amy.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you? Sorry, I'm a little blurry. My screen is apparently messed up, but we'll go with it.
We'll go with it. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me today.
Of course. No, thank you for having me, for sure.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Amy is based here in Nashville, but travels all around, which we'll talk about. So she's not far down the road from me, but we are so excited to chat about all things social media, all things content creation, and just Nashville music life today. So I see a few people hopping on here. Hi, Lauren. But let's go for it. Do you want to start off and tell us more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So I started in the music industry in artist management. I actually was not someone who knew that I wanted to do this when I went into college. I liked music. I thought it was fun. I liked Nashville, but didn't really realize that you could work in the music industry. So I was a pre-med biology major that ended up emailing we had a very brand new music industry program at Troy down in Alabama, and emailed the teacher over Christmas break because I just wasn't happy to see about jumping into one of his intro classes just to explore it. Never had any interest in like business other than that. Jumped into that class with him, and he and I still talk all the time, and he pretty much changed my entire life. Like, he saw something in me, introduced me to people who were working in marketing in Nashville, and then gave me marketing roles. In Troy, everything is very hands-on. You don't really learn from a book. You learn by kind of getting fed to the sharks, and then once you've done it wrong, he'll tell you what you should have done, which is it's really stressful. Yeah. But it's awesome. And he gave me a lot of marketing roles. Within a semester, I was the director of marketing for an LLC record label that we had on campus, and founding like 2 shows and learning how to brand a show and like work with artists and run it all the way through. And that's when I became a marketing major that I had no idea about before. So started in artist management, several internships, jobs, everything kind of always still focused on that like digital, social media, web presence side of things. And that's really where my interests were. And it's just kind of evolved over the years to kind of moving more that direction and out of, which I know you can relate to, out of the artist management realm and into something that's a little more specialized and something I can do from anywhere and not be on call all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
What was your journey like from college to Nashville? How did you make that big jump when you officially came here?
So I actually the summer after my junior year decided that I didn't want to go back to Montgomery. I wanted to do something different. And I had a friend that was in a Christian band, and he retweeted something that his management company was looking for an intern. And I was like, that'd be fun. Like, luckily not a lot of thought went into like really doing that. Applied, came up for an interview. And I was actually registered for classes back home that summer. Like, that's how last minute it was. Came up for an interview, got the internship, and lived here for just like a summer. Mm-hmm. It was awesome. There's a story there where that actually led to my last artist management job, and one of my best friends was the person who was over that internship. And then after that, I was kind of seeing my husband, so I spent most of my senior year of college back and forth between Sorry.
There you go. We're back.
I am actually on Wi-Fi, so it shouldn't be doing that. But yeah, got my internship from looking at management companies. I would look up artists that I enjoyed and see who their managers were, and whether it was a best practice or not. A short email, not sending my resume or anything over, just, hi, I was curious if you guys have a summer internship program, and if you do, who should I contact? And got a couple interviews that way with smaller companies because I wanted to be small. I didn't want to be one of 20 interns. Like, that was just my personal preference. So
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, you get to do more when you are in such a small environment because they need more help. So
yeah, I actually ended up, it turned into like a contract labor type position, and I stayed on from May through December until the company went through some restructuring, and incredibly hands-on. I can't thank those guys enough. I mean, I learned so much from just even being taken out to lunch and having 2-hour conversations with people who had, I mean, been in the industry for such a long time and seen so many transitions. I don't think I would have gotten that experience anywhere else. So super thankful for that.
yeah, I remember like sitting on the floor just to listen to conversations, or like sitting on the couch or sitting in the kitchen, and they were always like, what are you doing in here? I'm like, listening, like
Listening, yeah. Constantly, because there's so much to learn. Like, you can, even now, I mean, you can think you understand something from the outside, and even working in this, I feel like I'm, understanding, but there's so much you don't see about a particular artist's career or what's going on at a major label or a major management company, that you just don't see all of those little moving pieces until you're there and you can actually hear it and go, wow, there's a lot more to something that seems so simple as, like, whatever the stage setup is, or that one shirt they're selling for merch. Like, there's so many pieces that go into it.
So true. So you kind of talked about how you started off in one major and then completely switched. So you got into marketing, but how did the music part play into that?
That's really what started me in marketing. Like I said, I was a huge music fan. I always have been. Actually met my husband at a show. So knew that I was interested in it. And I think I understood before I went to college, I came up here to tour Vanderbilt and learned about Belmont and learned that, like, there were programs. I'm like, oh, that's kind of, and honestly, it was just taking an intro class in Troy and that teacher going, hey, I think you'd be really good at this.
Yeah.
That kind of just changed everything. And I learned, I'll say it all the time, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but I think I still would say I learned more about marketing in the digital age and what's going on right now through my music classes and the opportunities given to me there than I have in my major degree classes at Troy. It's just because it's moving so fast.
Yeah. So tell us about your company and how that started and what you do.
Like everything else, it's kind of been like how pieces just randomly fall into place. I was working my last job was at Artist Focus Management with a girl named Tiffany Rockhold, who's awesome. If anybody ever wants somebody to sit down and kind of talk management with you, help you understand, like, she is the person. And she had a friend that runs a social media company that needed some help remote. And so I started helping Melanie a couple days a week. And then that kind of turned into, I'm now a part of a partnership with Melanie. It's like a freelance collective thing where although we are our own contractors, we kind of help each other out. So if there's something she's better at than I am, or like when the baby comes, if I need somebody to be kind of, on call for something that I can't do, it's a kind of a protection for us and our clients. So it just kind of transitioned from working in artist management with a focus on the digital to helping this girl who does a lot of different small businesses, and then kind of her training me to take it on my own and do this kind of work with both small businesses and artists. So I do, one of the things that I've recently started doing and loving is social media audits, so that people who aren't ready to hire someone, but they know they need help, we'll sit down and go over, like, what they're doing now, what's working, what's not working, some suggestions for what they could do, and then I can put together a plan that either they can implement themselves, that we can split the implementation of, or that I can take over. So it just kind of gives them that chance when you're not ready to jump all the way into the expense of, hiring a social media manager. And then currently most of my roster is small businesses, just this month. And so I run all of their accounts. Facebook, Instagram, whatever, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of that stuff on a daily basis. So it's just maintenance, strategy, all the fun stuff.
Oh, yeah. So I know this story, but for everyone watching, you mentioned that you met your husband at a show, and I know that he's a musician and that you help him as well. So tell us a little bit about what it's like being married to a musician and how you help his career.
I think it's a large, and we and I both laugh, but it's a large part of why I didn't want to work in artist management anymore. Just because I come home to it, I live it. Like he's literally downstairs right now in his studio having a meeting about producing a record. So it's easier to be separate. But Sean is kind of a jack of all trades. So when I met him, he was playing guitar for a major label country artist. We've kind of gotten away from that, but we'll still, we call that his day job. He'll still kind of take gigs every now and then.
Yeah.
But he's a singer-songwriter and tours on his own music. And I handle all of his booking, all of his social media, which puts me in a place to understand the difficulties when it's a personal connection, because it actually is a lot harder for me to handle his stuff than it is the people that I have no emotional connection to. I built his website. I handle all the updates on that. Booking, anything business related is all on me. So invoicing, emails, basically anything that's not the creative music part, I handle for him. And then, like I said, we tour. So we travel. In the summers, we're gone almost the entire summer. We get back a couple weeks ago. And then we travel down to Texas in October. So we live in an RV, which is tiny, and travel everywhere. And my work goes with me. So that's a huge help too. But so it's like I kind of straddle that line of understanding what needs to be done, but also understanding how difficult it can be when it's your content, your songs, like the things that you're really invested in. It makes it a lot more difficult.
Yeah. Well, and I know just from experience that being involved in that much of his career, I'm sure you say it makes it harder, but I bet it also makes it easier for you to understand how to run the socials, that you can then apply it to your other clients just because you are.
Yeah. I mean, incredibly. And that's kind of the fun part too, is that, and I've been listening to so many podcasts lately. That's my new, if I'm going to work, I don't want it to be quiet. And it's been fun to hear how larger companies are doing this too. But basically, he can be my guinea pig, which is kind of fun. So we can try things, and I can be like, I want to, see how this works and how that works, and kind of understand what the audience is looking for. Whereas, with certain clients, maybe more hesitant to trying something new that may not work at all. And Sean's just like, whatever you think, go for it. So that helps too.
So what's your favorite podcast right now?
It's called Social Pros.
Okay.
I think, hold on, I had it written down somewhere. Of course, I moved my book. It's called Social Pros, and it's over here. I actually found it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I've really been loving just hearing. I mean, most of it is from the perspective of a business. It's two guys who work in social media, but they bring on people who work in it for other businesses all across all different industries, and just talk about what's worked for them and what hasn't and what they're doing. And it's usually a lot of really big companies. So to hear them kind of going through the same thought processes that we go through on such a small scale has been really fun and kind of reassuring too.
Yeah, I bet. So you mentioned traveling, living in the RV. So I was going to ask you, what does a day in the life of Amy look like? But I don't think that's really a thing. So maybe what does a month in the life of Amy? Maybe what does September look like?
September, yeah. September we're home. So that's actually a lot more chill than being on the road. I get to kind of get into a little bit of a routine. Much like you, my office is in my house. I might work from it half the time. The other half, the couch is more comfortable. Generally, the benefits of working from home is it doesn't always look the same, but generally I'll get up and work and check in on things first thing in the morning, just because it's quiet and it's easy and there's no distractions. And we actually eat breakfast together. I know that's nobody does that, but we cook a big healthy breakfast and eat breakfast. And then if we're lucky, we get a boxing class in and then come home and work again until usually around 5:30 is when the dog's like, all right, it's the end of the day, take me for my walk. And we'll eat dinner and work. Both of us usually work until pretty late, but I have school too. So it's a balance of, sometimes I'm always on my computer, whether it's work or school.
Yes.
It's pretty much all day when we're home.
I'm sure. So what's it like balancing all of that? All of that?
We talked about this a little bit in our little chat like a month ago, but trying to learn to balance and turn off and say, okay, I'm going to work on this for this many hours and this for the next is probably the biggest challenge, because it's easy to get into something and then just keep plugging away and then the day's gone. And yeah, you accomplished one thing, but not the 20 other ones. Started using Asana again, which has been really helpful with Harvest for time tracking and just trying to keep up with stuff. And luckily, the good thing about baby is that he makes me take breaks, because he doesn't like to let me sit for very long. So there's a lot of like, all right, I'm going to have to stop this and do something else. But yeah, I think that once school is over, it will be a lot easier to balance.
Over? When is school going to be over?
December, which is awesome. It's one of those things that I didn't finish and I'm pretty open about this now. When I came up for my internship, I was doing what I wanted to do, and it was taking over a lot of my time, but it was what I was going to school for. So I had intentions of finishing online and just never did. And I don't feel like it's anything that necessarily is holding back my career at all, but it's just one of those like more personal fulfillment things of like, all right, it's time. Like I need to graduate and finish. So the classes I'm taking have nothing to do with what I do on a daily basis, but I'll have a degree in December. So that's what we're after.
Well, it sounds like degree in December, baby in January.
Yeah, which is also, we are crossing our fingers that he does not decide to come early. Yeah, we're just like, dude, come on, you got to let me graduate here. And yeah, that's the other fun part of working from home, is trying to watch how things shift and we figure out what a new schedule is going to look like when there's another person involved. But I feel really lucky to have spent the time and still be spending the time, both of us, really actively building businesses up until the end of the year, to put us in a position to be home with him and not have to do the daycare thing right away. Because I'm sure, as if there is anybody watching in Nashville that has kids, it's very expensive to do that. So we're really lucky for that.
Yeah. So how do you stay motivated or inspired on a regular basis with all that you've got going on? I'm sure it feels like sometimes it's like you just got to get work done, but how do you find those creative moments to stay motivated?
I think, yeah. I mean, and that's something that everybody, I think, whether you're an artist or you're on the business side, like even what you love, when you're doing it day in and day out, can become monotonous if you're not careful. So part of it has been stepping away when I need to, like realizing that all day, every day, doing the same work probably isn't for the best. So like we're going to the beach this weekend, and that's part of where working all day the past couple of days has come into play to give me those days off. But honestly, stuff like the podcast, like listening to something that takes a more creative spin and takes, a different approach, lets me learn something, gives me something new to try. That kind of rejuvenates me. It makes me want to go like implement new things and see how they work. So yeah, either one. I mean, there definitely are times when it's like, oh, I've got to get off the computer for a little bit and back up, and then you appreciate it again. But it can get, I mean, it's that way for Sean too.
Yeah.
He loves what he does, but once you've spent, weeks on the road playing shows, or you spent a solid month in the studio working on a record, it gets a little monotonous.
Yeah, and I can only imagine the two of you working together, like that just is never ending. Like you're always on, because that's just what you two do.
Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of conversation too in our house, where like he works better at night and I turn off at a certain point where I'm just like, I'm done. I don't want to look at work anymore, and he'll come upstairs with questions and I'm just like, nope, tomorrow. Like I'm done. This is my like veg out on TV time and get ready to fall asleep. We're not thinking about anything else anymore.
Yeah.
So that's been, we both keep, which is funny, we don't do digital calendars. We both keep like pen and paper calendars and write everything down. And the boxing classes are stuff we do together. Like we do things to get away from, the work relationship type thing too. But it is good. Like when we're home, we're separate. Like my office is in the back and his studio is downstairs. So it's like being in two completely different places.
Nice. So let's talk a little social media. There were some girls that left questions in the group yesterday, but maybe do you have a few do's and don'ts before we check out those questions?
Yeah, I mean, and one of them is actually something that I know somebody asked about. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes as I'm looking off screen. But I think that one of my favorite things for artists is to be real and be yourself and not like to an extent. Of course, there's too far. Like nobody
Right.
needs to see super personal, gross. Like if your house is a disaster, we don't really need to see that. But don't try to be somebody else. Don't look at whoever your favorite artist is and try to emulate everything they're doing. You know, people want to connect with you. I mean, this goes for artists or brands or anybody. It's why you're starting to see a lot of brands take on a personality. You know, Southwest has one on their social media that's completely different from the other airlines. But people connect with stuff they can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're constantly posting this super polished, you know, version of yourself that you're selling, it doesn't seem real. And social media is about that. It's about that personal connection. It's not about just yelling at people and telling them what you're doing or what you're selling.
Yeah.
The connection is huge. So that's my biggest thing is be real. Like, yeah, learn from people, but do what feels good to you. Like on our personal side, and it's hilarious and it's something we laugh about. Um, if we're lacking on engagement or stuff to post, like legitimately, if we take a picture of the dog or like the dog and Sean and tell people what they're doing for the day,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, like how much engagement that will get. And we even did some videos, and we weren't really sure how they were going to work. It was a very like, hey, let's try it thing from inside the RV that were super like, I mean, Sean was in like a hat, you know, and like a ball cap and athletic shorts, just kind of very low key. And those were some of our highest engagement videos from the summer. So people just want to connect with you.
Yeah.
That was my biggest one. I think I touched on the other biggest don't is like nobody wants to be sold to all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we see it, it's TV, it's radio, it's ads, it's Facebook ads, it's Instagram ads now, it's everything. Like nobody wants to be sold to. So if you're constantly posting every single day about your music, your show, your CD, your t-shirt, like it's not going to connect with people. You do have to do it sometimes, but you have to have that mix in there because it just doesn't work. And one of the things on the podcast I was listening to yesterday that it really made me like click was that they were talking about a guy who started, he's like one of the biggest financial advisors, you know, totally different industry in England or something. And he started a podcast to connect with people. And they talked about how sometimes just outlasting people and sticking with something is what matters the most.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't do it once and go, oh, like 3 people tuned in. I can't do this anymore. And so they said it actually took him 18 months to be able to track his first sale back to that podcast. But now he's got one of the biggest businesses there. So it was just like kind of sticking to it and not expecting everything you do to turn into a CD sale, a ticket at a show, like whatever. It's about building something.
Right.
So I don't know if that helps.
I used an analogy about that for a while, and I'm kind of like, it's like learning an instrument. You don't like practice once and you're awesome at it. Like you have to keep practicing and keep putting it out there for it to work, you know?
And yeah, and it's also just a lot like any relationship or friendship. Like you don't meet somebody once
Yeah.
and they're your best friend or the person you're going to marry. Like you have to keep, and you have to invest in it. You can't just, the other thing that actually was making Sean listen to one this morning while I was cooking breakfast, and it just hits on so many ideas that I have that are actually kind of the opposite of what you hear from people sometimes. But they talked today about how like you don't need to cast a super wide net. Mm-hmm. That if you need to be like more deep in one channel and then expand. So I think that's something that a lot of artists struggle with is wanting to be everywhere today. You know, there's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, your website, SoundCloud, Spotify, like everything. And I don't do it for Sean. Like I can't possibly keep up with all of them. It's just you're not going to be able to do a good job of everything if you're doing it yourself. So it's more important to build that engagement on a platform where first your fans are. So recognizing what your audience is. For us, my husband's older, we're not on Snapchat. There's not a point. Right. You know, if you're in your teens and early 20s, your crowd might be on Snapchat, and that's where you need to be. So recognizing what your best platforms are and then really building it. So you don't just throw a video up, throw a post up, and then leave it. You have to go back. Somebody asks a question, you have to engage with them. Somebody leaves a compliment, you need to say thank you. Like, it's a relationship that's two-sided, not just one. So you're not just yelling at people,
Yeah.
which is essentially what you're doing if you just like throw something up there and then, okay, throw something else at you tomorrow. So that's the other thing, is engagement is a lot bigger than people think it is, and engagement coming from the artist is a big deal.
I was looking at someone's account yesterday, and their last post on Facebook was the middle of July, and it was that their album came out. And I was like, you stopped there? Like,
that's not the end.
Yeah.
Like, that's the beginning of the conversation this day and age, because people don't, it's just different now. And I don't think it's a bad different. That's another really great conversation that I love having with people, and especially people who have been in the industry for a while, is that it's different. You know, you're not going to make, you don't put a record out and you make a ton of money because you put a record out. But as a small independent artist, these digital platforms have given you the opportunity to connect with fans in a way that small artists didn't have in the past.
Yeah.
So you can have a very, sorry?
Even 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, you can have an incredibly sustainable career as a small independent artist because of the connections you make. Mm-hmm. But it's just kind of changing that mindset, and then also figuring out what does work for you. Everything is not going to be the same for every person. Every platform is not the same, right, for every person. I'm not a huge video person. I don't do a lot of, for my personal, you know, like Instagram stories where I'm talking. That's just not something I'm good at. And I recognize that and just do something different. So, and it's the same for Sean. Like, we just kind of had to figure out what works, and we're still playing with it. So that's probably the most important part, is just not feeling like you don't have to do it all. You don't, that's one of the things they said this morning I'm going to stick to, is you don't have to talk to everyone.
Yeah.
You just have to find your people and talk to them. So.
Yeah. And you shouldn't feel like you have to.
No, and I see that a lot. There's a lot of places I'll see where people ask questions and it's like, oh, you're not on this, you're not on Snapchat, you're not on, like, you can't possibly, and it's just not true. You just have to figure out where your platform is and what works for you. And then, like they said today, it's not saying you should never branch out. You know, you become really great at Facebook, then step over to another one and start to implement the same things. And maybe your career steps up and you can afford to hire somebody to come on and help you manage. Well, then you're bringing on more manpower. You could step out to a third platform. Like, it just kind of has to grow organically, because you only have so much time, so much energy to put into these things, and you just can't do a good job if you're trying to do too much.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where I heard it, but if you spent like all the time that you spend on all the platforms and put it into one, think about how good you would be at that one.
Exactly, and you'd be able to learn more. So that's always my cup of tea, because I just hear so many people. I mean, we see it all. I'm sure you see it on Facebook in different groups and stuff. People just struggling with a specific platform and feeling like that's where they have to be. And it's like, you don't have to be there. Like, nobody's telling you have to. Like, yeah, Facebook is the big one. It's probably a good idea. If you're younger, you might can get away without it, because a younger audience is going to be more on Instagram and Snapchat than Facebook. But there's no rules. There are people that do this with just YouTube. I mean, that's one thing I want to learn more about. I'm not good at that yet, but there are no rules. It's just finding where you are and what works for you.
Yeah.
I think that's the bigger mistake, is more believing that, like, you have to do something.
So you mentioned, like, finding your community online. So I want to ask you how you find your community online for you and your business, and what that means for you.
Yeah, it's been interesting. That's a fun one. There's a lot of really great groups out there that have a lot of women. For me, my group online is just people that I relate to and that are on the same level with me. So I love that. Obviously, this group is awesome because it's a lot of people who are chasing after similar goals. And then there's a few other ones, Rising Tide Society, stuff like that, that you get to be around people and engage with people that are kind of chasing the same goals. But it's not where my clients are. So that's been the fun part too. Yeah. To understand the difference between who you can engage with and who's going to be, you know, your service person. So that's been a fun one for me, is still trying to figure out, I guess, for sure, where that side of my community is. I think it's a lot easier. I know you guys are going to hate hearing this, but I think it's easier when you're an artist to find those people online that are wanting to hear your music and stuff. But yeah, even for me, it's trial and error all the time, constant. So
Yeah.
just what social media is. And that was another thing that I listened to recently, was about how in this digital age where we're able to do things like what we're doing right now, like it's not costing us any money to make these kind of videos from your phone. It gives you the opportunity for that trial and error. You know, you can make a video on your phone and put it up, and there's no engagement, and you can get up the next day and try again and do it differently. You're not hiring a crazy expensive TV crew to come in and make this video, and then you put it out and nobody enjoys it. So this like somewhat disposable digital era that we're in allows you that opportunity to try new things, and if it doesn't work, it's not a big deal. Do it differently tomorrow.
Yeah, so true. So do you have any specific advice for anyone who wants to be a freelancer, and maybe, yeah, any kind of advice just about business and being in music business for yourself?
I think it's harder than people think it is. My husband and I are both freelancers, which is really fun. It means that there are months that we are sitting there like literally waiting for the paychecks to come in, because we're like, okay, guys, you know, there's no set date that you're going to get your check. There's no set amount that you're getting every month. So I think that part's harder, and I think the isolation can be harder than you think it would be. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is the first time I've had makeup on all week and like real clothes, but it can be harder. We have to like find reasons to get out, the boxing classes, the hiking, like make lunch meetings, get out of the house, go see people. So I think just being sure before you take a leap that you're really ready for that is important. I know a lot of people will step out to freelance and then become very unsure of it once they realize, you know, that they're not getting a check on the 15th and the 30th. And there might be some months that are hard. I would say if you're wanting to start small. You know, I started while I still had another part-time job, and so did Sean. You know, he was playing with somebody else as he was starting to build his studio business. So start small so that you can have that foundation and see what it's like, and really be sure it's what you want to do, and then make sure you're ready when you make that leap, that it's going to be different than anything you've done before. And surround yourself with people who get it. We talked about this too. Like, I have a lot of friends that work in music. I have a lot of friends that are wonderful friends, but my world is a completely different world than from theirs. Mm-hmm. And there can be a lot of, maybe people don't take you seriously when you complain about how hard your workday is, because you're home. How could it be hard? So you need people around you that understand that, like, yeah, I'm home. It was awesome. I did get to like cook my own lunch and throw a load of laundry in while I did my work, but it also like was a really crappy work day.
Yeah.
And I need somebody that can understand, like, yeah, I get it. You can have bad days too.
Yeah.
It's not all roses. So yeah. Community.
I mean, you too. Wake up whenever you want, work whenever you want. It takes a lot of, I don't know if determination is the right word, but you know, you have to be in charge of your own schedule and make it happen, or nobody else is there to tell you what to do or make it happen for you. So it can be hard and rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. And it can be a double-edged sword, because there's that side where it's like, oh, you know what? I don't feel good this morning. Yeah. I'm going to take the morning off. Yeah, that's great. But then there's that other side of you that has so much to do that it's midnight and you're still working and you haven't turned off. Yeah. So you kind of have to balance both of those sides of your personality, of like, you have to get it done, you have to start working, but you have to be able to stop too. Right. You know, for other people, they leave the office at 5 and their evening is their own, and it can consume you if you're not careful.
Yes, and we were talking about that recently too. Yeah, just so much. If any of you are watching this replay and have like any questions or just want somebody to talk to, both Amy and I love talking about this, so just feel free to leave us comments or emails. So what do you have advice for anyone who is married to a musician?
It's a fun ride. It's funny because my perspective is so different, because I worked in artist management. We were actually at a show on last Thursday, we had another musician friend in town, and I was like, I feel bad because I'm not that typical wife that's just always super obliviously proud of everything. I'm like, my management brain is still there, and I'm like taking notes at the show to like talk about the next day of things that could be done better or different. So part of me feels like, halfway guilty about being that person, but it's a balance. Anybody who is a musician or has married to one who's incredibly creative knows that just even their entire thought process is different than mine. I'm really type A. I like lists, I like order, I like boundaries and all of those things, and it's kind of the opposite. So it's just kind of really learning that personality and coming together in the middle has helped a lot. Me understanding that creativity and him understanding the need for order and the need for like, okay, it's midnight, like we're done, we're going to bed, we're not like gonna work till 4 a.m. and sleep all day tomorrow. But yeah, and just being supportive, and I think trying to help has been a good thing. Everybody maybe doesn't have the same skill set, obviously, but there are things that you can learn and do that are incredibly helpful because they can't do it all. Yeah. And in the beginning, you can't hire people to do it all either. So I think that's been helpful too, to be able to know enough that I am a sounding board and we can talk about things together rather than just, sure, go do whatever you want to do. But yeah, it's a balance. And I'll say it can be a really interesting balance for me because of working in it and understanding it. But then when I'm out with him at his shows, you're treated like, the wife or someone that doesn't know anything about it, And so that can be a challenge in learning when to speak up and when to help out and when to like play that role. Like, sure, I'm the oblivious wife, nice to meet you, like that kind of thing. And we've even had it sounds so dumb, but we've had interesting experiences where like for certain shows, small places, it's helpful for me to play through email, who I am. I'm his wife. I handle this. People love it. Bigger places, sometimes I'm a completely different name that works for his booking and doesn't, isn't married to him or related to him. So it's just been interesting to see that too, and to see how some people love the fact that we work on things together and other people see it as like a less than professional front. So
that's interesting.
Those might be little white lies, but I know there are plenty of artists out there who also send emails themselves to book themselves under like somebody else. Tom Smith, the booking agent name. So
for sure. So before I ask you this last question, if anyone on here has questions for Amy, let us know. But where can people find you and follow you online?
So my website is amybyrnemedia.com. Pretty simple. Facebook is Amy Byrne Media, and then Twitter and Instagram are Hello Amy Byrne. So it's all pretty simple. Hopefully that's the goal. And seriously, if anybody watching it back has questions, I live on Facebook, obviously, because that's what I do. So, ask away, and I'm sure one of us will get back to you.
Yes. So maybe that's my question. Another question I have for you: how do you work on social media and not get distracted?
Yeah. Distraction is real. There are days that Facebook gets closed because it has to, or like I open it to my client's page and don't, move from there. But yeah, the distraction factor is an incredibly real thing. The breaks help. And I think we talked about before getting out of the house sometimes when I know that I'm fighting that, because for some reason there's like a guilt factor at the coffee shop. You don't want like somebody looking over your shoulder and being like, why is she just sitting here playing on Facebook? Like you feel like you have to work. So that helps a lot. And just realizing like, all right, this is dumb. Yeah. I need to like X out of it. Maybe I'll go do the dishes, throw the laundry on, and come back and like start over. But yeah, like right now on my computer, obviously I'm on Facebook with you, but on my computer, Facebook isn't even open right now. So
I had to realize that in the beginning, because even just doing like counts of followers on all the platforms, you're on every single platform, and then you're like, oh, what was I here to do? And then you go to the next one, and then you're oh, what was I here to do? And like, I've done this in 2 minutes.
Yeah, and the notifications pop up. That's the worst. It's like you're on something, you can be on a completely different page, and then something pops up, and you're like, oh, what is this? I should see. So my Messenger's turned off. I don't get notifications for my phone from Messenger either, just because it's not something I want to deal with. And so just trying to, and that's been actually a challenge for freelance life all around. Boundaries, for sure. Even with an email, if it's not someone I know personally, I usually, if I'm answering them late at night, will use Boomerang so that it goes back during business hours, because I have had that situation very early in my freelance career, with setting that precedent and people then expecting you to be accessible 24/7. You should be answering me in 10 minutes. You did last time. Why aren't you now? So, boundaries. Boundaries are big.
Yes, big and important. Awesome. Well, I guess there's no questions right now, but if anyone has a question while watching the replay, let us know. Would love to chat with you guys in the comments. And Amy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope you have an amazing trip to the beach.
Thanks. It'll probably be our last one before baby, so we're excited.
Exciting. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck with school and travel and
Thank
all
you.
that you do. And I hopefully we'll run into each other at a coffee shop one day. I don't know.
I think it'll happen as close as we are.
One day, or maybe we'll just schedule it.
There you go. Thank you.
Bye, Amy.
Bye.